collapse of hypermarket chains in China, bankruptcy and closures everywhere. China's economy is currently experiencing a severe recession, widespread unemployment, and numerous business bankruptcies. Many stores now sit deserted, with the once vibrant scenes of shopping centers becoming a thing of the past. Following the collapse of Carrefour, one of the top 3 supermarket chains under the Suning Group, stores belonging to the famous supermarket chain RT Mart and the renowned Japanese Xi'an department store chain, which has been operating in Shanghai and Tianjin since 1997, have announced their closures. Metro China's Hutai Road store has also gone out of business and closed. Recently, the famous Shanghai City Hypermarket, City Shop, which specializes in distributing high-end items and boutique brands, has announced its closure as well. Under the negative impact of the increasingly widespread economic recession in mainland China, some large supermarkets have closed stores in a desperate attempt to cut off their arms to survive, while others have imitated other supermarket brands to make drastic changes. More supermarkets have begun relocating to 3rd and 4th tier cities. China's supermarkets are experiencing a store closing wave. According to data released by the China Chain Store Association, the top 100 supermarkets in China in 2023 have seen declines in both sales scale and the number of stores compared with the previous year. Among them, Yonghui, RT Mart, and China Resources Vanguard have all experienced declines in both sales and the number of stores, while CP Lotus's sales have fallen by more than 20%. In 2023, nearly half of the listed supermarkets suffered losses. To reduce rent and labor costs, many supermarkets have closed stores at an alarming rate. According to Liansheng.com, at least 131 supermarkets closed nationwide in the first half of 2024, including some industry giants. Public data compiled by Shangguan News shows that in the first half of the year, Yonghui Supermarket closed 38 stores, China Resources Vanguard closed 15 stores, Walmart China closed 17 stores, and City Shop announced that it would stop all store operations and completely withdraw from the market. In fact, China's supermarket industry began to decline several years ago. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics of the Communist Party of China shows that from 2017 to 2020, the number of supermarket stores dropped from a peak of 38,554 to 24,082, a decline of 37.5%. The reduction in large chain supermarket stores was even more significant, dropping from 11,947 in 2012 to 5,340 in 2020, a decline of more than 55%. In recent years, supermarket companies have shifted their focus from first-tier cities to third-tier, fourth-tier, and even smaller county towns. Residential communities have replaced city centers, high-end neighborhoods, and business districts as the new battleground for supermarket companies. Customer flow declines, nearly 30,000 noodle shops in China, close in half a year. With the sharp decline in customer flow, nearly 30,000 noodle shops closed in the first half of this year. High-end noodle shops are no longer popular, which has become another microcosm of China's consumption involution. The so-called high-end noodle shops are those with a customer unit price of more than 40 yuan, RMB, the same below. These shops are concentrated in shopping malls and office areas, with urban white-collar workers as the core consumer group. According to Chichacha data, as of May this year, there were 31,000 registered noodle shops and 29,000 deregistered noodle shops. In comparison, the net growth in the first half of the year was much lower than in previous years, highlighting the increasing difficulties in the noodle shop business, particularly for high-priced establishments. The first-half financial report data released by Ajisen Ramen, known as the originator of high-end noodle shops in China, showed that Ajisen Ramen turned from profit to loss and expected a net loss of no more than 20 million yuan in the first half of this year. This news caused its stock price to plummet. A business owner who runs 2 noodle shops in Zujiahui, Shanghai, also admitted, It is not easy to run a noodle shop this year. Everyone's performance is tightening. We have done far more than last year, including the platform's free meals, free trials, zero-yuan store visits, and even invited singers to perform. But the results are not as good as last year. Many friends who run noodle shops had plans to expand their stores, but no one has opened new locations this year. Beijing digs its own grave. China's local governments have doubled their revenue from fines compared with a decade ago in an effort to make up for losses in other revenue sources, according to a report released on Tuesday, August 27th. However, this move is likely to provoke a strong public backlash. Government data shows that total fine revenue in 2022 was 368.7 billion yuan, about 88 billion US dollars, up from 161.3 billion yuan in 2013. Although the 2023 figure has not yet been released, based on the share of fines in non-tax revenue since 2018, the 2023 figure is likely to be around 380 billion yuan. Panjin collected a total of 1.3 billion yuan in fines last year, an average of more than 1,000 yuan per resident, equivalent to 13% of the city's tax revenue. Enforcement has become tougher in the past few years, said a taxi driver. If you don't give way, you'll be charged 200 yuan. That's your day's income. Chinese media Caijing found that between 2018 and 2021, 29 of the country's 247 major cities collected at least 10% of their tax revenue from fines. Some cities with small economies and low tax revenues are particularly dependent on these funds, such as Wuzhou and Hezhou in the Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region, where the proportions are 29.8% and 23.2% respectively. Last fall, officials in Liangshan Yi Autonomous Prefecture, Sichuan Province, began inspecting residents' homes to improve hygiene, charging fees of 3 yuan to 20 yuan for violations such as unwashed dishes or unmade beds. In Luoyang, a man made 21 yuan selling vegetables with high pesticide content and was fined 110,000 yuan. Nikkei Asia noted that these tough measures come at a time when many local governments are facing severe financial difficulties. Revenue from the sale of state-owned land, use rights to developers, an important source of income, has fallen sharply during China's real estate downturn, plunging more than 30% last year from its 2021 peak. At the same time, the central government is worried that more penalties will lead to greater public dissatisfaction and could spark public anger. Chinese youth return to hometowns to start businesses, but lose everything due to abnormal climate. China's economy continues to decline, and youth unemployment remains high, prompting many young people to return to their hometowns to start businesses, mainly in traditional farming and breeding. However, due to inexperience and abnormal weather, many have lost everything after being hit by multiple typhoons. Typhoons Beibei and Prasang caused severe damage in Shanghai, Jiangsu, Anhui, Henan, and other areas. Guo Ting, a college graduate, returned to Jiangsu because he couldn't afford to buy a house or raise children in Shanghai. His vegetable greenhouse was completely destroyed, with losses exceeding 100,000 yuan. Rebuilding will cost even more. He shared how he worked overtime in Shanghai, but couldn't make much progress. In 2019, he returned to farm, but this year was the worst. 16 acres of land were blown away. Mr. Chen from Fujian, who started working at 18, found it hard to secure a job and returned home 2 years ago to farm. He reclaimed 70 to 80 acres, but struggled with abnormal weather and market conditions, leaving him unable to cover labor costs. Poor weather delayed his potato and corn crops, causing significant losses. Liu Qian from Hebei resigned from his bank job in Beijing due to low wages and returned home. He borrowed 100,000 yuan to raise 1,000 native chickens and geese, but remains unsure about the future of his business. Zhang Yi from Hunan, who recently returned home, is learning farming from his grandparents. He enjoys rural life, with uncultivated land available in the village for planting, but notes the challenges that come with it. China's economy is in serious recession, with bad news pouring in and the wave of business closures and bankruptcies accelerating. Recently, after Japan's Honda and Nissan announced that they would close factories and production lines in Guangzhou, Wuhan, and Changzhou, further developments emerged. On Monday, September 9th, multiple Japanese media outlets reported that Honda Motor would reduce the number of employees in its joint venture with Dongfeng Motor Group in China, marking the second time Honda has laid off employees in a Chinese joint venture. Dongfeng Honda Motor, one of Honda's joint ventures in China, began soliciting voluntary early retirements at the end of August. The process ended this month, though the number of affected employees has not yet been disclosed. The voluntary resignation plan applies to production workers at 3 major factories producing fuel vehicles. Honda's new car sales in the Chinese market have declined, and another joint venture, Guangxi Honda Automobile, also solicited voluntary resignations in May. Guangxi Honda, a joint venture with the state-owned automaker Guangxi Group, saw about 1,700 people, accounting for 14% of the total workforce, agree to early retirement. Nikkei Asia News reported that Honda originally planned to reduce its workforce in China by about 3,000 employees in the current fiscal year ending in March, which includes voluntary layoffs and natural attrition at Guangxi Honda. However, the layoffs at Dongfeng Honda were not included in this plan, indicating that Honda's layoffs in China may be more extensive. On July 25th, Honda announced that due to sales difficulties, it would cut its annual production capacity by about 290,000 gasoline vehicles in China. This marks the first time Honda has reduced production capacity in China. A Honda spokesperson said that production at joint venture factories with GAC Group and Dongfeng Company would cease in October and November, respectively, with the Dongfeng factory's annual production capacity being 240,000 vehicles. Before the Japanese media reports, Chinese media had already reported that Dongfeng Honda was facing strategic adjustments and planned to implement large-scale layoffs. It was expected that around 2,000 employees would be affected. The layoff compensation plan follows the N+2+1 model, and reports even suggest employees were fighting for the layoffs. Dongfeng Honda's official blog announced on September 10th that this personnel optimization was part of a phased adjustment aligned with the company's strategic transformation. In the Chinese market, the demand for new energy vehicles, such as electric cars, has expanded, leading to sluggish sales for Japanese automakers. In August, Honda's new car sales in China fell by 44% year-on-year, marking the 7th consecutive month of year-on-year declines. Foreign automakers are facing severe challenges in the Chinese market due to cutthroat competition and policy subsidies from the Chinese Communist Party authorities. According to data from the China Passenger Car Association, the market share of foreign automakers in China fell from 53% 2 years ago to 33% in July.